The grand chamber of the Galactic Council sparkled with holographic displays, each one showing different aspects of Earth's military development. High Counselor Ver-Exid, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns of disapproval, gestured at a particularly primitive image of human tanks. And they still use explosive propellant? How? Quaint, the chamber filled with the musical equivalent of derisive laughter from the assembled council members, their various appendages wiggling in amusement. Kazar, standing before the council with all four hands clasped nervously behind their back, cleared their throat. Respected council members, I must insist you examine the efficiency ratings of these supposedly primitive weapons. Efficiency. Ver-Exid's crystal structure flickered in what passed for a sneer. They're still using metal projectiles. Yes, precisely. Kazar activated their presentation, displaying combat footage from Earth's most recent conflicts. While we've developed energy weapons that can be disrupted by atmospheric conditions or electromagnetic interference, humans have perfected the art of throwing very small pieces of metal very sparingly. The footage showed a group of Marines in an urban combat scenario. One of them suddenly stood up, screaming Leroy Jenkins before charging at an enemy position. Clearly a malfunction of their combat stimulants, muttered one council member. Actually, Kazar said, their voice taking on the slightly manic tone of someone who knew they were right, but couldn't get anyone to listen. This is a demonstration of what humans call tactical insanity. The enemy was so confused by this apparent suicide charge that they failed to properly respond, allowing the humans' team to flank their position. Ver-Exid waved a crystalline appendage dismissively. And this proves what? Exactly. It proves that humans have turned unpredictability into a weapon. Kazar switched to another clip, this one showing soldiers using a toilet seat to repair a tank track. Look at this. When their advanced technology fails, they don't stop fighting. They improvise. They adapt. They use bathroom fixtures as spare parts. Barbaric, someone muttered. Precisely, Kazar exclaimed. They're barbaric geniuses. While we've spent millennia developing technology to make warfare more civilized, they've spent that time perfecting the art of winning by any means necessary. They don't just think outside the box, they set the box on fire and use it for cover. The presentation continued, showing clips of human special forces training. They voluntarily subject themselves to extreme conditions just to prove they can survive them. Look at this training regime they call Hell Week. They deliberately deprive themselves of sleep and comfort to become more effective warriors. Surely you're not suggesting, Ver-Exid's voice dripped with condensation, that these primitives pose any real threat to our civilization? They haven't even achieved faster than light travel. Kazar pulled up their final slide, showing a human soldier fixing a complex piece of equipment with what appeared to be adhesive tape. Honorable Council, I believe we're making a dangerous assumption. We've developed our military doctrine around the principle that advanced technology always prevails. But humans, they paused for emphasis. Humans have developed their entire culture around proving that principle wrong. They call this substance duct tape. Kazar continued, pointing to the image. It's not even a smart material, just sticky fabric. Yet they've used it to repair spacecraft. They fixed a lunar rover with a car fender. They once stopped a bullet hole in a submarine with spam, a food product. The council chamber erupted in dismissive chatter. Ver-Exid raised their appendages for silence. Thank you, Kazar, for this entertaining presentation. However, I believe we've seen enough to conclude that Earth requires nothing more than standard containment protocols. Their quaint military techniques might be amusing, but they pose no real threat to a civilized species. As Kazar gathered their materials, they noticed a new alert in their data feed. Somewhere on Earth, a human soldier had just figured out how to turn a cleaning robot into a mobile explosive device using nothing but a rubber band and a can opener. They sighed, knowing the council would learn the hard way humanity's greatest military advantage wasn't their technology, it was their relentless determination to make whatever they had work, no matter how absurd the solution might seem. Very well, Honorable Council, Kazar said, bowing slightly. But might I suggest we start our observations by explaining why humans consider something called a gender reveal party to be more destructive than some of our tactical weapons? The council's dismissive laughter followed Kazar out of the chamber. As the doors closed behind them, they couldn't help but mutter, "Your loss." I tried to warn you about the species that invented the phrase "hold my beer and watch this." Initiating planetary electronic suppression in 3, 2, 1. The Galactic Council's flagship hummed as it released a carefully calibrated electromagnetic pulse toward Earth. Verexid's crystalline form gleamed with satisfaction as they watched the wave of energy cascade across the planet's surface. "Observe," they announced to the assembled council members, "how quickly their military capabilities crumble without their precious electronics." Kazar, watching from a corner console, noticed something odd about the human military bases they were monitoring. Instead of panic, they detected laughter. Somewhere in the mountains of Afghanistan, Master Sergeant Chen wiped the sweat from his brow and grinned at his squad. "Well, folks, looks like someone just tried to send us back to the Stone Age." He pulled an old bolt-action rifle from the armory shelf. "Good thing we never left." Sir Private Rodriguez called out, already strapping on his gear, "I think I saw something that looked like a scout ship landing near the ridge." "Outstanding." Chen checked his ammunition. "Time to show our advanced friends why Marines still train with iron sights." In the Council flagship's observation room, Verexid was becoming increasingly agitated, their crystalline structure vibrating with confusion. "This is impossible," they muttered, watching as human military units continued to operate. "Their communications should be dead. Their weapons should be useless. Why are they still moving?" Kazar couldn't help but smile as they pulled up their research notes. "Honorable Council, you might find it interesting to know that humans have this concept called backup plans for their backup plans. They also never stopped manufacturing purely mechanical weapons, just in case of, well, this exact scenario." On the main screen, a squad of Marines could be seen moving through the mountains with practiced precision, using hand signals and paper maps. They carried what the Council had dismissed as museum pieces, rifles with no electronic components. But their targeting systems are down," one council member protested. "Bold of you to assume," Kazar replied dryly, "that humans need computers to hit their targets." Chen's squad had reached the ridge, moving silently through the gathering dusk. The alien scout ship gleamed like a chrome dinner plate in the valley below, its crew presumably confident in their technological superiority. "Remember basic training," Chen whispered to his team, "when the drill instructors made us practice with Revolutionary War muskets." "Thought they were just being sadistic," Rodriguez muttered back. "Nope. They were being prescient," Chen grinned. "Standard ambush formation, just like we practiced. These folks want to see primitive? Let's show them primitive." The Council's command center erupted in chaos as alarms blared. "Scout ship Gamma reports they're under attack," an aide announced. They're being hit by primitive chemical-propelled projectiles." Impossible. Verexid's structure was practically vibrating with indignation. "Their targeting systems are offline." According to this, Kazar interjected, reviewing the incoming data, "They're not using targeting systems. They're using something called Kentucky windage and accuracy by volume of fire." The main screen showed the scout ship's hull being systematically riddled with bullets, each shot hitting vulnerable points with disturbing precision. The ship's crew, accustomed to relying on electronic countermeasures, had no defense against simple physics. "Gamma reports critical hull breach," the aide shouted. They're being boarded. The humans are climbing up onto the ship." "They're what?" Verexid's voice cracked. Chen stood atop the disabled scout ship, keying his old-fashioned radio, the kind that still worked just fine without modern electronics. He couldn't keep the grin out of his voice. "Dear advanced alien civilization," he broadcast on all frequencies, "that was our obsolete equipment. Would you like to see what happens when we actually try? Because we've got some real interesting toys in storage that don't need fancy electronics to ruin your day." He paused for effect, then added, "Also, thanks for the scout ship. Our engineers are having a blast figuring out how it works. Turns out a wrench works just fine on alien tech if you hit it hard enough." Back in the council chamber, Kazar was updating their presentation. "Might I direct your attention to this human concept called percussive maintenance? It's fascinating, really. They've developed an entire methodology around the careful application of blunt force to make technology work." "Enough," Verexid snapped. "This is clearly an anomaly. One squad of primitives got lucky." Kazar's console beeped with new alerts. "Actually, I'm receiving similar reports from 17 other locations. Oh, and it seems the humans have figured out how to reverse engineer our hull plating using something called WD-40 and a paperclip." The council members watched in horror as more reports flooded in. Humans weren't just adapting to the loss of electronics, they were treating it like a challenge. Someone had apparently just taken down an alien drone with a slingshot and a rock. "Should I prepare a presentation on human improvised weapons?" Kazar asked innocently. "They have this fascinating technique involving tubes and fertilizer." Exid cut them off with a gesture. Perhaps we should reconsider our approach." "Wise choice," Kazar muttered under their breath, "because according to my data, they haven't even broken out their bayonets yet." Commander Zix Till of the Galactic Armed Forces prided himself on his species' enlightened approach to warfare. Clean, efficient, technologically superior, which was why he was having trouble processing the current situation. What is that noise?" he demanded, his tentacles curling in distress. His second-in-command consulted a data pad. "According to our cultural database, it's something called Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival. The humans are broadcasting it from approaching aircraft." Through the base's sensors, they could see a squadron of what their database identified as helicopters, primitive aircraft using rotating blades for lift. But it wasn't their technological simplicity that disturbed Zix Till. It was the faces painted on them. Sneering shark mouths, grinning skulls, something called a peppy, and was that? Why is one of them painted with something called Yu-Wu? "Psychological warfare," Sir Kazar said, having been assigned as a cultural advisor after their previous warnings proved prophetic. "Humans believe that if you're going to terrify your enemy, you might as well have fun doing it." A new report flashed across the screens. The Galactic Force's Western Perimeter base had gone silent. The last transmission mentioned something about knife-wielding shadows and smiling demons. "Ah," Kazar said brightly, "that would be the Gurkhas." "The what?" "Nepalese warriors. They specialize in mountain warfare and silent killing. They've been doing it for centuries. That reminds me we should probably check the Eastern Perimeter too. They're quite thorough." Zix Till's complexion shifted to a sickly shade of green. "But our sensors?" "Don't bother with sensors," Kazar interrupted. "Just listen for the sound of silence. When things get too quiet, that's when you should worry." Another alert caught their attention. Human ground forces were approaching the main base. The commander relaxed slightly. At least this would be a conventional attack they could deal with. Then he saw the tanks. Why, his voice quavered. Why have they painted giant googly eyes on their armor? "Oh, that's the least of it," Kazar said, pulling up more images. "Look at their unit patches. This one's a duck in a suit firing 2 guns. That one's a unicorn stabbing a tank with its horn. And my personal favorite, a cartoon dog drinking coffee while everything burns around him." But war is serious. To humans, yes. Deadly serious. So serious that they've learned the only way to stay sane is to laugh in its face. Kazar checked their notes. "They call it gallows humor, though personally I think they just enjoy watching us try to maintain tactical discipline while their soldiers blast something called Never Gonna Give You Up at maximum volume." The base's speakers suddenly crackled to life with a new sound, a deep, rhythmic thumping. "What is that?" Zix Till demanded. Kazar consulted their database. That would be Fortunate Son being remixed with Yes, Baby Shark. The commander of the Western Perimeter base chose that moment to stumble into the command center, his uniform pristine but his eyes wild. They were everywhere and nowhere, he whispered, smiling in the darkness, moving like ghosts. One of them stopped to brew tea before disappearing. "Psychological warfare," Kazar explained helpfully. "The Gurkhas believe that true terror requires a personal touch. The tea is a signature move, very civilized, really." Zix Till watched as his carefully organized defense plan crumbled in the face of what could only be described as militant chaos theory. Human soldiers were advancing in formations that made no tactical sense, yet somehow worked. Some had attached speakers to their vehicles, creating a cacophony of what they called boss music. How, he finally managed to ask. How do they maintain unit cohesion while behaving like creative lunatics, Kazar suggested. That's the beauty of it. They've turned insanity into a tactical advantage. The more unpredictable they appear, the more it disrupts our carefully planned responses. A new sound filled the air, bagpipes, accompanied by the thunder of drums. "Oh dear," Kazar said, actually sounding worried for the first time. "That would be the Scots. More humans." Humans who invented a musical instrument specifically designed to terrify their enemies. They've been using it successfully for centuries. Khazar paused. They also fight in kilts. In what? Traditional garments that. Well, let's just say they're very confident in their psychological warfare techniques. As if to punctuate this point, a massive explosion rocked the base. Through the smoke, they could see human soldiers advancing, some wearing helmets adorned with what appeared to be rubber ducks and anime cat ears. They're not even trying to be stealthy, Zix-Til protested. Why should they? Khazar replied. They've already broken into your base using stealth. Now they're just showing off. Look, that unit is advancing while performing something called the Macarena. Commander Zix-Til, veteran of 100 perfectly organized battles, finally broke. This isn't warfare, he screamed. This is madness. No, Khazar corrected gently. This is humanity. They've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of driving their enemies insane while having fun doing it. The Gurkhas were just kind enough to bring tea to your mental breakdown. In the distance, someone started playing Cotton Eye Joe mixed with heavy metal. High Counselor, we've successfully intercepted a critical human military supply shipment. The tactical officer's report buzzed with excitement. Their forces in Sector 7 will be crippled without these essential resources. Ver-Exid's crystalline form glowed with satisfaction as they examined the captured cargo. Their triumph lasted exactly 3 seconds. These are beverages. Their voice cracked in disbelief. Khazar, who had been quietly monitoring the situation, began backing toward the door. Oh no. What do you mean, oh no? Ver-Exid demanded. They're just primitive chemical stimulants. Coffee, energy drinks. They picked up a can. Something called Monster Ultra Paradise. You just cut off Marines from their caffeine supply, Khazar explained, still backing away. Remember how I said humans get creative when they're angry? Well, they get downright scary when they're angry and caffeine deprived. In a forward operating base, Master Sergeant Chen stared at his empty coffee mug. His eye twitched slightly. Sir, Private Rodriguez approached cautiously. The aliens took our entire coffee and energy drink supply. Chen's expression could have stripped paint. They too are coffee. Yes, sir. And the emergency rippets. The ones we were saving for the apocalypse. Yes, sir. Chen stood slowly, cracking his knuckles. Rodriguez, remember that impenetrable alien defense system we weren't supposed to be able to breach? The one with the quantum-locked force field, sir. Get the squad ready. And bring the bolt cutters. If they think we're scary with caffeine, wait till they see us without it. Back on the council ship, alarms began blaring. Status report, Ver-Exid demanded. The humans in Sector 7 are advancing. The tactical officer sounded confused, but their biosigns are all wrong. Their heart rates are elevated, they're showing signs of sleep deprivation, and are they singing? Khazar checked the audio feed. Ah yes, that would be the coffee song mixed with what appears to be death metal. How long have they been awake? Someone asked. According to these readings, 47 hours. And their weight, they're breaching the quantum barrier. Impossible. Ver-Exid rushed to the display. How are they even thinking straight? Bold of you to assume they are, Khazar muttered, watching as a squad of Marines dismantled a section of the impenetrable defense grid using nothing but hand tools and sleep-deprived determination. The surveillance feed caught snippets of conversation. Yo, this reminds me of that time at Taco Bell at 3 a.m. Dude, if we survive this, I'm getting a tattoo of a coffee bean punching an alien. Anyone else taste colors? No? Just me. Are they making jokes? Ver-Exid asked, horrified. Humans have this saying, Khazar explained. Better living through chemistry, though I don't think this is quite what they meant. On the screen, a Marine was explaining to his squad mate how the alien force field reminded him of the time he tried to microwave a spoon while pulling a 72-hour guard shift. Somehow, this led to them figuring out how to short-circuit the entire system. Their combat effectiveness should be decreasing, the tactical officer protested. The lack of sleep and stimulants should be rendering them unable to function. See, that's where you're wrong, Khazar said. Humans don't just adapt to sleep deprivation, they weaponize it. They enter this state they call beyond caffeine, where they become too delirious to know what's impossible. As if to prove their point, a squad of Marines could be seen using an improvised slingshot made from spare boot laces to launch cans of their last remaining energy drinks at the force field generators. Somehow, it was working. Is that human? Solving quantum equations, someone pointed at a Marine who was scribbling complex mathematics on the back of an MRE package. Sleep deprivation combined with caffeine withdrawal, Kazar explained. He's probably seeing the numbers floating in the air. Remarkably accurate, though. The defense grid suddenly flickered and died. Through the breach strode Master Sergeant Chen, his eyes blazing with the special madness that comes from missing 3 coffee cycles. "Dear advanced alien civilization," his voice crackled over the comm system. "We just took down your impenetrable defense grid with hand tools and spite. Now, about our coffee supply." Verexid's crystalline form paled as they watched the humans advance. One soldier was dual-wielding socket wrenches while reciting what appeared to be an entire episode of SpongeBob SquarePants from memory. Another had rigged a portable speaker to play the sound of a coffee maker, which seemed to be driving his squad mates into a berserker frenzy. Perhaps Verexid suggested weakly, we should return their stimulants. "Oh, it's far too late for that," Kazar said, watching as a Marine explained to a terrified alien prisoner how the defense grid's quantum harmonics reminded him of that one time he tried to deep fry a glow stick after a 4-day training exercise. They've gone beyond mere caffeine dependence. Now they're running on pure sleep-deprived momentum and righteous indignation. How do we stop them? Stop them, Kazar laughed. The last time someone tried to come between Marines and their coffee, they invented 3 new swear words and a theoretical branch of physics. Best we can do is stay out of their way and hope they crash before they figure out how to weaponize their hallucinations. In the background, a squad of Marines could be heard debating whether they could modify their reheaters to achieve nuclear fusion, while another group had somehow turned an alien quantum computer into what they called a space coffee maker. Note for the Council records, Kazar dictated calmly. Next time, maybe don't steal stimulants from the species that invented the concept of "so angry I can see through time." The Galactic Council's central command center had devolved into barely controlled chaos. Holographic displays showed the final battle unfolding across multiple fronts, each more bewildering than the last. "How are they doing this?" Verexid demanded, their crystalline form flickering with stress patterns. "They're simultaneously hacking our quantum networks while engaging in hand-to-hand combat," Kazar supplied helpfully. "That human over there is typing code with one hand while wielding something called a tactical shovel with the other." The tactical displays showed the full spectrum of human warfare in action. A team of cyber warfare specialists had set up their equipment right in the middle of the battlefield, calmly drinking energy drinks while breaking through alien firewalls. They'd somehow hooked their systems up to a modified Game Boy Color, claiming old-school tech is harder to hack. "Their methods make no sense," Verexid protested. "That squad is using advanced electronic warfare techniques while another is fighting with sharpened sticks." "Ah yes, they call those pointy end goes in the other man very effective when you run out of batteries," Kazar watched as a group of Marines demonstrated why bayonet training had never gone out of style. In one sector, Army Rangers had run out of ammunition but showed no signs of retreating. Instead, their commander raised his rifle, bayonet glinting. "Fix bayonets," the order rang out across the battlefield. "They're not seriously going to." Verexid's voice trailed off as the Rangers began their charge. "Oh, but they are," Kazar said, unable to hide their admiration. "And they've chosen their battle cry perfectly." The Rangers charged across the field, bayonets fixed, screaming at the top of their lungs. The aliens manning the defensive position froze in confusion as they recognized the melody, a 20th century human song about never giving up, never letting down. Are they Rick-rolling us in the middle of a bayonet charge?" someone in the command center asked incredulously. "Humans call it psychological warfare plus," Kazar explained. "The goal is to confuse the enemy so thoroughly that they forget to be scared until it's too late." The alien defensive line broke under the combined assault of sharp steel and mimetic warfare. In another sector, a squad of Marines had commandeered an alien hover tank and somehow modified it to play something called Sandstorm at maximum volume while shooting. "Sir," a tactical officer called out. "The humans have breached the inner defenses. They're dabbing as they advance." Verexid watched in horror as human forces demonstrated their full repertoire. Special forces operators were using alien anti-gravity plates as improvised skateboards to reach higher positions. Combat engineers had turned cleaning robots into mobile demolition devices. And someone had programmed the base's AI to respond to all commands with your mom jokes. The final straw came when a group of sleep-deprived hackers, still angry about the coffee incident, managed to rickroll every screen in the alien command center simultaneously, while a squad of Gurkhas emerged from supposedly secure air vents. How did they get in here? Verexid demanded. Through the power of superior stealth techniques. In spite, one of the Gurkhas answered politely, offering the alien commander a fresh cup of tea. Milk? Sugar? Khazar stepped forward, addressing the stunned council. Perhaps now would be a good time to discuss surrender terms? Before they start combining their tactics. You really don't want to see what happens when the Gurkhas learn to hack. As if to emphasize this point, a Marine squad breached another section of the command center, led by Master Sergeant Chen, who was dual-wielding an alien plasma rifle and his beloved tactical shovel. You know, Chen called out conversationally, "We've figured out how to make your quantum computers run Doom. Want to see?" Verexid looked around their command center. Human soldiers had seamlessly integrated captured alien tech with their own equipment. Someone had mounted a bayonet on a plasma rifle. The Gurkhas were teaching special forces operators their stealth techniques, while Rangers demonstrated the finer points of mimetic warfare. "We surrender," Verexid announced, their crystalline form drooping in defeat. "We surrender to your superior-inferior methods," Khazar suggested. "Just promise you'll stop mixing 21st century memes with ancient combat techniques, please." Master Sergeant Chen grinned, shouldering his plasma rifle bayonet hybrid. "No promises. By the way, has anyone shown you what happens when you play caramel dancing through a quantum communication array?" The entire human force broke into grins that would have sent the Cheshire Cat running for cover. "Surrender accepted," Chen said. "Now, about our coffee supplies. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council looked considerably less grand these days. Several crystalline pillars still showed scorch marks from what humans had dubbed the Great Coffee Raid. And someone had stuck googly eyes on the ancient statue of the first counselor." Khazar stood before the assembled council members, trying very hard not to look smug. They weren't entirely succeeding. "As I was saying in my original presentation," they began, pulling up their updated findings, "humanity's greatest weapon isn't their technology. It's their unique problem-solving methodology." The display showed footage from various encounters: Marines breaching quantum barriers with hand tools, Rangers charging alien positions while blasting meme music, Gurkhas appearing where Gurkhas simply shouldn't be able to appear. "Their soldiers don't just adapt to chaos," Khazar continued. "They embrace it, they weaponize it, they turn it into jokes, and then they weaponize the jokes." Verexid, their crystalline form still showing stress fractures from the final battle, nodded wearily. "We understand that now. What's your recommendation?" "First, I propose we officially classify humans as technically primitive but tactically terrifying. Second, I suggest we establish a new primary directive for all galactic military forces: never, under any circumstances, invade a planet where the inhabitants consider war a sport and turn their trauma into jokes." The council chamber murmured in agreement. One member raised an appendage. "What about their technological development? Surely they'll advance beyond their primitive methods." Khazar pulled up their final slide. It showed human soldiers testing a new plasma rifle they'd reversed engineered from alien tech. They'd already attached a bayonet to it, and somehow mounted a cup holder for their coffee. "That's the truly terrifying part," Khazar explained. "They're not going to abandon their primitive methods. They're going to combine them with advanced technology in ways that will probably violate several laws of physics and definitely violate the Geneva Conventions." The council voted unanimously to adopt the new classification and military doctrine. They also added a specific clause: in the event of future contact, never, ever interrupt their coffee supply lines. As Khazar gathered their materials, they noticed a small gift box on their podium. Inside was a ceramic mug with the text "World's Most Vindicated Xenoanthropologist" and a pack of premium Earth coffee. The attached note read from the Marines: "Thanks for trying to warn them. P.S. We taught the Gurkhas how to pilot spacecraft. Sleep tight." Khazar couldn't help but smile. Perhaps it was time to update their research files with a new section on human gift-giving customs and why they were just as terrifying as everything else humans did.